Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating legal tool. It's what the law uses when a promise gets broken, but just throwing money at the problem won't fix it. We're talking about something called specific performance. Let's jump right in. I think we've all been there. You make a deal, you have an agreement, and then, poof, the other side just backs out. It's so frustrating, right? And, well, that's pretty much the fundamental problem that contract law was invented to solve. But here's the thing. What happens when the thing you were promised is totally unique, like a one-of-a-kind piece of art, or a very specific piece of land, or maybe that classic car you've been hunting for years? I mean, how can the law possibly make that right when a check just won't cut it? That is the question. All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to build this whole explainer around just one single question. It's a question that gets right to the heart of this entire legal idea. And here it is, straight from our source material. What is the purpose of specific performance? This is going to be our guide for the next few minutes. And think about it. The name itself, specific performance, it's already giving you a huge hint about what it does. Sometimes the best way to figure out what something is to first get clear on what it is not. So before we reveal the right answer, let's start by knocking down some of the most common myths out there about this. Okay, first up, this idea that the whole point is punishment, that when someone breaks a deal, the court's job is to make them pay, for being a bad actor. Yeah, that's just not how it works. See, contract law is all about fixing a problem, not punishing someone. That's what criminal law is for. The goal here is just to put the innocent party back in the position they were supposed to be in, not to penalize anyone. All right. Myth number 2 is that specific performance is just a way to call the whole thing off. Just rip up the contract and let everybody walk away. Nope, not it either. In fact, it's pretty much the exact opposite of that. We're not trying to end the deal here. We're trying to force the deal to actually happen. What's being described here? That's called termination, and it's a totally different thing. And this brings us to probably the biggest misconception of them all, that this is all just a fancy way of saying someone has to write a check. And you guessed it, that's wrong too. Look, getting a check, what lawyers call damages, that's usually how these things get sorted out. But specific performance is special. It's the tool they pull out precisely when money isn't enough, when no amount of cash can actually fix the situation. Okay, so we've talked about what it's not. It's not about punishment, it's not about canceling everything, and it's definitely not about just getting money. So, what is it, really? Let's get to the true purpose. Here we go. It's actually really straightforward. The purpose is to require a party to perform their obligations under the contract. It means the court literally forces them to do the specific thing they promised to do. No substitutes, no way out. Yeah, that's really all it is. The court steps in and basically says, look, a promise is a promise. You agreed to sell this specific house, so you have to sell this house. You promised to hand over that unique painting, so you better hand it over. Simple as that. Okay, so why is this such a big deal? Why does this difference matter so much? Well, understanding the line between forcing the promise and just getting a check, it actually tells us a lot about what the law and what we think is truly valuable. This really breaks it down. Check this out. On one side, you got financial compensation. That gives you money instead of the thing you were promised. But on the other side, specific performance enforces the original promise itself. You see the difference? One is a stand-in, a substitute. The other, it's the real thing. So, if you're going to remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. Damages, the money, are just a substitute for performance. But specific performance is the actual performance. It's the difference between getting some money to buy a car versus getting the keys to the exact vintage car you had a deal on. And that right there is the whole point. The whole reason this legal idea even exists is because the law gets that some things, they're just one of a kind. They're irreplaceable. You can't just slap a price tag on a family heirloom or that specific plot of land where you were going to build your dream house. And that kind of leaves us with this big final question to think about. In a world that is so often about dollars and cents, this whole concept forces us to ask, when is the promise itself worth more than any amount of money? And when is a deal so important that the only real justice is to make sure it happens exactly as promised?